Hey Choth, I appreciate you putting up with the delay in me getting this video done. Watching your forehand, there are a couple things I think you can change immediately that'll have a positive impact on your game. The first, which we've already mentioned in the forums, is that when you prepare, your other arm here, your left arm, should be extended across your body, or not necessarily across your body, but along the baseline, and that's going to help you with your balance and judgment of the tennis ball. So point that arm at the side fence over here about shoulder level. The second thing I want to look at is your contact point. There are a couple things you should change. The first is that you haven't fully pushed off your back outside leg here, your right foot. You need to be fully pushed off at contact. You can rotate your upper body a little bit more, be facing the net. And if we take a look at Frank's contact point over here, you'll see he's done those two things. I can probably zoom it or play it forward slightly more. Well, now it's off his strings, whatever. He's fully pushed off his back foot at contact, and he's facing the net. And again, that's opposed to you, where you still have weight on that outside foot. It's still bent. You need to push off, get the heel up, and then rotate a little bit further around at contact. Another thing it kind of looks like you're doing, it's a little bit hard to see here, is during your forward swing, based on how you're following your swing up and then following through, looks like you might be scooping the ball a little bit, like you were digging with a shovel as opposed to swinging through it. The strings are a little bit open here and here as well when you're following through. What you might want to try and do is lead with the top of your racket, the top of the frame. If we look at Frank, you would pretend essentially to be swinging with this part of the racket leading first, and that's going to get you to come over the ball more. And watching Frank as he swings forward, it kind of looks like he's doing that here now. Obviously his strings are facing the correct direction, but then well into his follow-through, you'll notice his racket position is a little bit different. His strings are totally on edge here, as opposed to in your follow-through, again, it looks like your strings are a little bit open. They're facing up when you should be extended out and have the racket on edge. And I suspect if you swing really hard, your shots fly a little bit long and you don't get as much topspin as you want. One of the reasons you might be scooping the ball is because your elbow is pretty bent at contact. I'd like to see you straighten it out a little bit more, and you're hitting it late. You need to hit the ball further out in front of your body. And into your follow-through, your elbow still stays pretty bent, and you pull off the ball and wrap around your body faster than I think you should. You should extend out on your follow-through a little bit more, like Frank has done over here. His elbow is bent, but again, he is extending out into the court. And what Frank would be able to do here, if he wanted to, is catch the racket with his left hand. If he reached out, he could catch the racket here in this position. And that's sometimes a good trick to try if you're pulling off your shot, if you're not extending out after you hit. Catch the ball out in front of your body with your left hand in this position, and that'll force you to swing and follow through correctly. So that's something you can maybe try right about here. You know, you'd be extended out further, and then you could catch the racket with your left hand, and like I just said, that will force you to follow through into the court more as opposed to pulling off before you should. On your slice backhand, there are a couple things you could correct. One is that, at least on this slice backhand, you are out of position. You're really reaching, you're bending over to get to the ball. And this is just a more general point of all your ground strokes. You could take a lot more steps in between your shots and I think get in better position. That's one of your problems with your ground strokes, is that sometimes you're out of position. So I would focus a lot on your footwork, and that should have immediate positive returns on your groundies. But on this particular slice, first thing when you're preparing, the racket should be up over your shoulder as opposed to back here. This was more like a one-handed backhand. And if we compare your preparation to Oliver's, you'll see that his racket is way up here. He's going to swing down on the ball, and your racket is right around here. It's much lower, like we can see in this spot. And then on your contact point, again, this might have to do with your footwork, but you're really reaching too far away from your body on your contact. Oliver looks much more comfortable when he makes contact with the tennis ball. He is extending out a little bit, but not quite as much as you. So that would be the other thing I would correct. Finally, on your two-handed backhand, you have some of the same problems that you have on your forehand. Particularly, your hitting arm position breaks down too soon into your follow-through. You need to extend out more. After contact, you're right before contact here, and now the ball's off your strings. Your elbows have already started to bend. And over here in Frank's follow-through, his hitting arm, both arms are his hitting arm, his left arm is really extended out into the court. So he has followed through much further in the court as opposed to you, where your arms are starting to bend and you're bringing the racket around the other side of your body too soon. So that'd be the first thing I'd change. The other is you tend to swing through the ball, kind of like a door rotating around a hinge. The racket doesn't really drop down too much on your swing, and you could get the racket a little bit lower and brush up a little bit more, and that'll probably give you some more topspin. If you look at this preparation here by Frank, the racket is dropped down almost to his knees, and even on the low ball here, your racket doesn't really get below the ball too much, which you don't always have to do, but I think if you got the racket down and then extended out, you'd hit a more effective backhand, and you'd probably have a little bit more spin on the ball, some more control. So that might be something you want to try.